Hello everyone and welcome to the first 2016 Alliance of Independent Authors members only Q&A, and I'm Joanna Penn here with Orna Ross. Hi Orna.
Hi Joanna, and hello everyone. Happy New Year if it isn't too late. It is kind of too late to say that,
but it's February next week.
Still, it's our first time to talk to these nice people this year.
Oh goodness, we've got so much going on and we have lots of questions, but we always start with a little personal update just to prove that we don't just talk about this stuff, we actually do it. So Orna, give us a writing or publishing update. What are you working on?
Non-fiction and fiction. So most interestingly for ALLi members, I think, is the non-fiction book I've been working on with Helen Sedgwick. Helen is our legal advisor, and she's an absolute wealth of knowledge around all things contractual and legal. And she and I have been working together. I have a background for a couple of years as a literary agent, and she and I together have been working on a book called How Authors Sell Publishing Rights. And free, as always, as all our guides are to our members. It looks at the whole area of rights and taking a rights perspective on your career, which is a different way to look at it than a lot of indies tend to look at it. But publishing rights are a very important part of trade publishing for a reason. They add to the bottom line, they extend your readership, and they do all sorts of nice, good things. So the book focuses on takes a broad look at all kind of the rights that are embedded in your book, but focuses particularly on translation rights and TV and film. And yeah, it was a real eye opener. I really learned a lot in writing this book and looking at the world in that slightly different way. And because I think, because of historically the way in which self-publishing has grown up, we're inclined to kind of polarize trade publishing one side, self-publishing on the other. But in fact, the authors who are most successful use both, and it's good. One of the things that the book does is try to explain the landscape of trade publishing and help people to understand how to negotiate it, and lots of practical tips as well.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that book. I think it's an advanced book. You know, everyone starts with an ebook and maybe a print on demand, and then maybe they go audiobook, and then globally selling English books, and then this is the next step. This is the maturity of the indie landscape. I think has caused this book to be the next thing.
That's exactly right. And one of the things that we kind of, in the writing of the book, because it's been in preparation now for over a year and a half, is that we've become very clear about the author journey. And the beginning is there are three phases. First, it's all about making the book, and that takes you on the whole design and editorial jag, and then it's all about selling the book in English. And then only when all of that's up and running do you actually start to look at the rights that are embedded in the book. So yeah, absolutely, it's part of the whole picture, if you like. And we're going to be as well kind of hanging our education from now on around those three pillars. So this year we'll be doing conferences, online conference. We used to do, well, last year when we did it, we had 3 days together, but what we're doing now is we're separating them out over the year and around the three major book fairs. So the London Book Fair one, which is the first one in April, that will centre on the making of the book, the design and editorial. There will be some other information and news and things in the conference, but that will be its central kind of thrust. And there's lots for advanced indies to learn about and refine there as well. And then the BA one would be about selling, marketing and promotion. And then the Frankfurt one, appropriately, I think, because Frankfurt is the big rights sale book fair, it's the biggest of them all. We'll be looking at the kind of rights perspective and running a rights business, and how that adds to your business, and the whole thing about money and time, and essentially being a working indie. So that's kind of the way everything will revolve around those three kind of pillars from now on.
Super exciting. A long way from when you first self-published your first poetry chapbook.
Oh yeah.
And I think this is so important, because I get emails. I was saying on my own podcast, I got upset because someone emailed and said, who speaks for the person with only one book? And I'm like, look, we all had one book. We've all been there. So we are speaking for those people too. We're just a little further on the journey. Each book is still the same. Like, it's still each book becomes a different thing. Like Risen Gods, which I just did before Christmas, my first co-author thing with Jay Thorne, we thought, oh great, between us our audiences will coalesce and we'll have this massive big hit because both our audiences will love it. Whereas what seems to have happened is it's fallen down the gap between both of our audiences.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's fascinating, and the reason is it's connected to no other world. It's a standalone. Like we've had people read it and love it, but it's a standalone book in a new world. It's very difficult to market a standalone book, even if you have a platform. Yeah. And this is what so every single book is a new experience.
Absolutely. And I would worry slightly about somebody who says, who speaks for the author with one book, because I really don't think you can call yourself an author if you have one book. There are lots and lots of people who have one book in them. It's a non-fiction book, often connected to their profession or whatever. There may be one story that happened, that you need to turn into fiction and get out there. But that does not an author make. An author, by definition, is somebody who actually wants to do this long-term, hopefully even make a living out of it, hopefully, possibly even do really well out of it. So, that kind of thing, who speaks for the author with one book, is in a sense, maybe getting yourself a little bit stuck on probably thinking, oh my God, I can't write a second book. It was too hard to write the first one, which would completely sympathize with that.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta.
Yeah, and I'm right now working on Destroyer of Worlds, which is Arcane Book 8, which in a series, much easier to market. But also, I forgot to tell you this earlier when we had a private chat. I'm doing dictation.
Oh, you got there in the end.
Yeah,
I've tried this.
Happen.
Yeah, it has to happen. Joanna Penn and dictation. It makes no sense not to do that.
Well, exactly. And Orna's been doing this for years. And dictation, of course, I mean, some of the greatest authors use dictation. This is not new. John Milton apparently wrote Paradise Lost. He was blind, dictated the whole thing. And lots of other examples, including Dan Brown with the Da Vinci Code, also a dictation guy.
Interesting. Didn't know that one.
Yeah, exactly.
I did know Milton, yeah.
Yeah, when you look into it, you discover how many people use dictation. And what's so interesting is I was a 2,000 words a day person. I had a bit of a,
Seeding.
Yeah. And
we all have one.
Yeah, immediately with dictation, I'm at 3.5.
Yeah.
And it was so crazy just to kind of shoot through that. And it's been a real mental block. And I will be doing a blog post about this, but I've had a couple of podcasts about it too, if people are interested. And it's just it was just a psychological block. And the excuses, like saying about excuses, I just put up loads of excuses. Oh, I can't write that way. I don't want to do the punctuation. And it's ridiculous. So anyway, I'm thrilled that I'm now a dictating author. Not 100%, obviously, but, for first draft,
yeah.
Duper.
I don't think anybody ever is 100%, but I'm really, really pleased to hear that, because I think it just makes so much sense. And what I find it fantastic for as well is that it does all the other writing and typing that you have to do as an author. So your emails and things, and I also think, people are getting very used to it. You can do your social media, you just chat instead. So, it's actually very natural. Strange, funny words pop up, of course, and you don't really notice them. But I think people are getting used to that. They're going, text to speech, gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. But that was my big thing on my wall is Healthy Author 2016, and one of those was to stop the RSI in my arm. So I forced myself into this. I was like, you have to do it, and I was so surprised. It only took about 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't take that long, and it's got so much better. When I got the very first, I was a really early adopter, and when I got the first one, it was pretty bad. It was still better than typing every word, but it took a long time to, I don't know whether it was my Irish accent or whatever, but now it really does. It's so much better. It's really, really accurate. I find it incredibly good.
Yeah, so except I'm writing a book about India. So whenever I say like Shiva Nataraja, it ends up like some really weird.
It's not great with Gaelic either.
Anyway, on from that, but that's what we're up to. Okay, so let's go to the questions. One of the biggest things, the zeitgeist, let's go with the publishing zeitgeist, which is right now, the concern about Amazon and the quality check with these notices about typos. So this is basically Amazon are going to start putting public notices on book pages that say this book has been reported for typos and bad quality, but they will only do this when they have already warned the author that they need to fix the typo. So it's everyone should just calm down. If you get an email from Amazon saying, "Oi, fix a typo," go and fix it. And they'll give you, like we all get notices from Amazon sometimes about pricing or whatever. If you do it within between however many days they give you, it will be fine. So, and what they seem to be doing, this is targeting the really, 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 really bad stuff. This is not, I've written a book with Maori words. They're not going to come at me about the Maori words. They're going to look at the, you know, when you're a customer, you can complain about typos. Now, every reader knows that there are a few typos in any book. All trade publishing books have typos in too. So I think if you're using editors, you're focusing on a quality product, I don't think you should be worried. Is that your take as well?
Completely. I really welcome this move. I welcome anything that ups the quality level, because there are some, I have seen some, they don't even warrant the name book, you know, some absolute stinkers. So I think it's great to anything that sort of, because look, it's all about the reader, you know, and if you're reading a book and it's got lots of mistakes and typos in it, it's impossible. It becomes really, really difficult. And the whole point of this job is to make things easy, pleasurable, inspiring, you know, information or whatever for our readers. So it's just part of the job, unfortunately, because, you know, the ease of self-publishing and the fact that most people don't, when they start off publishing, don't understand what it takes to actually publish a good book. And how would they? You know, nobody tells you. You have to learn. You learn by doing, and you learn by, you know, the author connection thing, really, more than anything else. So it's understandable that people do it. So this helps them actually to say, oh, right, typos, because the thing is, you have a blind spot. You have a number of them, actually. You labor under a big cloud of delusion and sort of blind spots in order to write a book at all. And you don't see your own writing clearly. You don't realize you're making mistakes. You don't get it. And so this helps you to get it sooner. I think it's a really good thing. I'm always interested by the response. Anything Amazon does seems to drive people a little bit crazy. But no, this is a good thing for everybody.
Yes, excellent. Good. Moving on then. So a few questions around various publishing things. Is ALLi going to continue working closely with Ingram Spark in 2016? Will we enjoy the same discounts as last year?
Yes and yes.
Good. Second, Keith, I have been contacted by a publishing business called iUniverse. Could you tell me exactly what you think of their business offerings? Are they reliable, trustworthy? Am I better off not using their services? And this gives a wider question as to how to trust author service companies.
Okay, well, the first thing I would say is that iUniverse is one of the companies that we look at in how to choose a self-publishing service, and it does not get a good rating. It is not a company that ALLi would recommend. The wider question then about how to choose, you know, and how to know. As a member of ALLi, you are entitled to download the book, Choosing a Self-Publishing Service. A number of the chapters there actually tell you how to evaluate a service. First of all, how to make the decisions, you know, there's a broad decision about whether you're going to go DIY and go directly to services like Amazon, Kobo, etc., or whether you're going to go assisted and get somebody to help you and do the work. And we talk about the pros and cons of both of those methods. I think it's safe to say that most of the successful authors in ALLi are going direct. There are a few high-profile authors who have chosen very carefully good assisted services that do a particular set of things for them, or else perhaps money is less important to them than time. They just want to write and get their books out there, and maybe their ultimate aim is selling the rights on, getting a reprint deal, getting a trade publishing deal or whatever. So yeah, best advice is to kind of have a look at that book. We are also extracting some of the key chapters like that, how to evaluate a service, into a separate downloadable PDFs, which will be in the author advice centers. So yeah, be careful, take your time. This is not a decision to rush into.
No, and I get so many emails every day at the Creative Pen, and I must recommend choosing a self-publishing service at least twice a day.
Wow.
Well, yeah, because that's the biggest question I get. It's, you know, whether it's iUniverse or XXXX number of other publishers I've never heard of. I just say you can buy the book. So recommend, as ALLi members, recommend this book to your non-ALLi friends. It's available for sale on the stores. It's been updated. It was the end of the year, wasn't it?
Just now, yeah.
Now.
So it's bang up to date at the moment.
Yeah, really up to date, and it will be up, continue to be updated. And when people say this question, I just say, spend $5 or whatever it is if you're not a member, and there you go. There's everything you need. So that is my stock answer to that question. There you go. I just promote ALLi all over the place.
Oh, good for you.
Oh, well, it's, the thing is, everyone will know this, everyone listening, the more you get into this world, the more you get asked a question. And the questions are all the same. Yeah. So you need to have your stock answers basically over time, and it helps if someone's written a book on it.
It does, and that particular book is something I think that only we could write. It's very difficult for an individual author to get the sort of information that some of the Watchdog team have gone out of their way. I mean, we all owe them a huge debt. People like Victoria Strauss, David Cochran, Jim G. Matteo, obviously, who is the co-author of the book, and John Doppler-Schiff is another person who does so much for people on this, and Mick Rooney. So these people have really gone and done the work for you, so you don't have to. So yeah, thanks to them.
Yeah, and the other thing to take into consideration is when people are trying to, look at how they make their money. So obviously, ALLi's not making any money off any publisher by recommending anyone, by saying that CreateSpace is good or Ingram Spark is good. There's no kickback. So that's another way to kind of tell where are people's skin in the game.
Yeah, exactly. No, always look at the business model. Just follow the money trail in terms of whether you're. I mean, I had an author the other day who said to me, I was just on to a publishing service company and I told them the advice that ALLi gave me, and they said no, that I should do this, that, and the other, which was clearly in their interest. And she said to me, now I don't know what to do. And I said, you've got to evaluate where the advice is coming from, and what might be going. Yeah, okay, right. So not all advice is equal, and it's important to trust the advice you're getting. So
yeah, very important. Okay, I've got here Joanna. I don't know if it was Joanna or if I wrote my own name because I've been a bit sick, but if it is Joanna, somebody
egotistical like that.
What are the legal issues to consider in establishing a personal publisher imprint?
There aren't any. Really. It's a personal publishing imprint is you need to establish, there are legal issues around establishing it yourself as a business.
As a company, yeah.
As a company, as a sole trader, perhaps, as a partnership, maybe. So, there are legal issues there. First of all, the decision around that, which of those entities are you going to be? Having done that, you can call your company anything you like, and
your imprint.
But then, your imprint is something different. Yeah. That's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah. So your company has a name. Your imprint can have quite a different name, and it can just be a personal thing to you. It can be your own name. Everybody chooses something different, and some people don't bother having a separate imprint. Their kind of imprint is their author name, and they don't bother. I use font publications. That word font has a very deep sort of meaning for me in terms of my own connection to my own writing and publishing and all of that. So I use that, but I haven't registered font anywhere. It's just kind of there on the front of my books, and I got a little logo kind of made first that goes on the spine of the print books. So there aren't any legal implications around the imprint at all that I'm aware of.
No, it's like a completely separate field. I always say to people, it's like your author name. There's your real name that you have to get paid under, or whatever your actual legal name. Then there's your author name, which can be completely different, and then your imprint name is completely different, and then kind of the legal company name, if you have one, if you want one, is again completely different. And actually, Helen Sedgwick, our Uber Legal, covers this in the Self-Publisher's Legal Handbook. Yep. As well, which is again the other book that I recommend at least 3 times a week.
It's fantastic, and Helen is great. And I think a lot of this stuff around imprints has arisen simply and purely out of historical sort of things. So originally you had the author and the publisher, and the publisher's name went on the spine. You know, the publisher's company name was what went on the spine and was your imprint. But then they started buying up each other. So something like HarperCollins had, you know, 40 imprints. And so it's really a historical legacy sort of thing. You don't need it at all unless you want to do it.
Again, who shops by imprint? You know, most people go buy a book for other reasons, not, oh, I want to buy the latest whatever imprint today. Okay, moving on. Jim says, I find the advertised information available on the distribution of print books by CreateSpace and Ingram Spark to be somewhat vague. Could we get a few words on how and what they do in this regard? Is the author involved in the process, or do they handle it and any revenues all by themselves? I'm going to answer on CreateSpace, and then Orna can answer on Ingram Spark. So I use CreateSpace only. I am one of those people who focuses, my main business is digital. I love print on demand. It is 7% of my income from print books, and that is all through CreateSpace. I use free ISBNs, which is something we disagree on. And essentially what happens is you upload your files, and then you say, I do distribution through Amazon, and then I also do extended distribution on CreateSpace, which means it will appear in catalogs and libraries and universities and all of that. So it appears in catalogs. It's unlikely to potentially get ordered by bookstores because it's Amazon's CreateSpace company, but it is available. And I do see my book on random Swedish, South African, New Zealand bookstores who access the catalogue from CreateSpace. So you do have global distribution just through CreateSpace, and it is print on demand. So I set my price. When a customer orders the book, one copy is printed, sent to the customer, and I get the royalty that I set on that back end. So that's basically the process. But the main point is, if you do that, you can be on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and you don't have to do anything else. So Orna, what's the extra stuff that Ingram Spark offers?
Yeah, Ingram Spark runs a similar model, so it's also a POD self-publishing model. So, you know, don't confuse that with they take your book and they publish it and they market it or promote it. Nothing like that. It is a self-publishing model. The extended distribution, the difference with Ingram Spark is two things. One thing which is useful to a lot of our members outside of the US and UK is that you can use Ingram Spark to distribute your ebook and your print book both together, and to a wide range of distributors. So for some people, that's an advantage that they use. You pay for that, so you pay Ingram Spark a higher royalty level than you pay, a higher commission than you pay CreateSpace or Amazon or any other provider actually. And you pay upfront fees to set up and so on. So why would you use them? Well, the main reason is because that extended distribution that Joanna is talking about, that she takes in CreateSpace actually uses Ingram to do that. And so they get into the catalogs and everything through the Ingram catalog. So the Ingram catalog is a sort of a unique beast, if you like, in publishing, and particularly for self-publishers. It is the catalogue that every bookstore can draw on to purchase your book. Also libraries and, you know, the entire book ecosystem kind of has access to Ingram, and Ingram provides the distribution into all of those places. On Amazon, you should definitely be on CreateSpace as well for the Amazon environment. So if you distribute your book through Ingram, either through Lightning Source or Ingram Spark, you will have on the Amazon store, when people look at your book, you will have often this thing, only 2 or 3 left in stock, order now, or not, you know, it takes 21 days to deliver or whatever. So Amazon treats Ingram Spark books not, you know, it doesn't treat them the same way as it treats its own POD. So our advice is, if you are interested in print, if you're committed to print and you want to sell, and you have a plan, because the fact that you're in the Ingram catalogue in no way actually sells a book at all. It's just, you're just on a catalogue, and these catalogues, being digital catalogues, can go on forever, and it's growing as we are speaking here. It's burgeoning with more people putting their books up there. So if you have a plan for print and you want to get serious about print, then we would recommend that you use CreateSpace for the Amazon ecosystem and you use Ingram Spark for extended distribution. And there's a small cost, as I said, for the Ingram up front, but for the fact that bookstores are more likely to draw on you, and for a variety of other reasons, kind of too much to go into right here, that seems to be the best option at the moment, and that may change.
Good. And there's a great blog post on the self-publishing advice site, the ALLi website, about how to use CreateSpace and Ingram Spark together. So just go and have a look for that. It is advanced. I would say it's an advanced thing.
It definitely is.
If you're just doing your first book, just calm down a minute.
Yes, forget about it. And really, you don't need, Jim has gone into great detail in that post explaining, you know, the figures. I just go googly-eyed. I just said, okay, Jim, if you say it, then I agree with you, because he just goes into it in such great detail. And that is also a chapter in the book where we can compare kind of CreateSpace and Ingram on the one hand, Apple and Amazon on the other. So they are kind of the four big, huge services that you need to be thinking about.
There was actually another question just on the Facebook, the ALLi Facebook group, private members only group, which was asking a question about hardback copies. Now, I got the impression that the lady, it was her first book. And the question was, you know, traditional publishers will put out a hardback first, and then they will wait, and then they will put out a paperback and or an ebook later. And she was asking, you know, how would you do a hardback, because CreateSpace doesn't do hardbacks. And I just wanted to bring it up here since we're talking about it. And my answer is, I think there's a reason why CreateSpace doesn't do hardbacks. And that is because they have a very savvy business model, and who makes money on hardbacks is basically the point. But Orna, you have much more insight into this. And you have a hardback. When would an author do a hardback?
Yeah, very selectively, really. So again, historically, so much happens in publishing just because that's the way it kind of started. So all books used to be hardback. People don't realize this. Paperback is a relatively new format in publishing history. So all books were hardback. And then when paperback came out, there were specific paperback houses. So from a rights perspective, the original publisher, the primary publisher, was the hardback publisher, and they would then sell the paperback rights to a paperback house who would bring out the paperback. And that's why we still have hardbacks first and paperback second. So there's absolutely no reason, except it's historically done that way. And reviewers now expect to get the hardback, and you know, real hardcore fans like to get a hardback first and feel, you know, they have that. But to be honest, a new author with a new book, or even most authors with lots of books, unless you're well known, people are not going to shell out that kind of money for your words. It's as simple as that. Particularly when they can buy them digitally, free, you know, well, free in lots of cases, but cheaply in a digital version. So I would say to most people, forget. Go and leap into. I wanted to make a nice book. I love print books. I love hardbacks, and I wanted to make. So I did actually crowdfund, but I couldn't have done it if I hadn't produced a very nice hardback book. I'm glad that I did, in terms of a premium sort of price, and it worked out well for me. But it was a very thought out kind of reasons as much as anything else. It was a sort of a centenary celebration thing of a writer that was really, really important to me. And it was a great experience, but you know, it doesn't really add up to a whole lot of financial sense, even with the crowdfunder. So I would say forget about hardback in most cases, actually. If you do want to do one, Ingram does a nice one. Ingram's hard.
Yeah, which is great. And I mean, in that, isn't it true that the kind of the paperback model would have been considered like the digital now, like the ebook only publishers, the mass market format, and at the time publishers were like, oh, that's so crap, but so, you know, like they are still doing with ebooks. This is like the latest format that's almost, whether it will replace the paperback or not. I mean, some people say that did ebooks will replace paperback and hardbacks will make a comeback, so that there'll be kind of all the mass market share will go to digital, and then some, people who want books will get these lovely embossed gold cover things.
I see room for all the formats. I think there is room for hardback in certain kinds of books, but they are more gifty books, highly illustrated books, beautiful books that are beautiful objects in themselves. I think there is still a space for that. And I think there's still a space for paperback books. And there are lots of readers, I think, readers being what they are and quite conservative, who won't shift. And, you'll have the equivalent of the guys who still have their vinyl, we're going to have those. But digital, I think, POD is digital, but ebooks are going to become the primary format. It just makes sense. And we're already well along that route, I think.
Yeah, and actually I had, I'm such a global thing. I was on the first self-publishing podcast in India this week.
Congratulations, fantastic.
Yeah, Amar Vyas, who does the mykitab.in, and kitab is book in Hindi. And I was so super, super thrilled, and also got my first advanced reader people, one in Kenya and one in Nigeria, which is, I've had readers there, but to have people actually apply to be in my advanced reader group. Now, some people might say, why would you bother having people like that in your advanced reader group? Because they can't leave reviews on Amazon.com, so that you'll actually get better rankings. But I'm fascinated. So I'm like, how on earth did you find my books? And really kind of diving into how are these things happening? Because, this is the world we live in. It's kind of crazy how, but these people are reading on cell phones. And also Google this week rolled out their first fast Wi-Fi in Mumbai train station, with the aim of rolling out Wi-Fi across India. So, and in India, if you walk around India, people they don't have a computer, they have a cell phone. So that's
absolutely, yeah.
That's the change that we're going.
Really excited about all of that. I think it's fantastic, and I think the idea that you would have people globally wanting to be on your advanced review team is fantastic. If you're taking the long-term view. Which so many indies seem to not be able to do. It's all about short-term Amazon, the very narrow kind of focus. If you think about it and you think about the world out there and how many people are reading in English, and the fact that they have skipped the e-reading device completely and are onto phones, we all need to be thinking about that. Google's thinking about that. Facebook's thinking about that. All the big tech companies are investing massively in getting what they do out there, and we can ride that, but only if we kind of open up to it.
Yeah, super, super exciting. I always get excited about that. Okay, Jim, I don't even know if I got the names right anymore. Does ALLi keep a listing of manuscript editors who are recommended?
Yes, we do. We have a partner membership, and all our partners are vetted, and you can find them on the website just by using the search function and just key in editors, and you'll get a full listing. Alternatively, you can look at our most recent directory, and there's an editorial section in there, and they're all nestling in there as well, except for people who have joined since the directory was published.
Keith asks, I've written the first book in a planned series, but I'm overwhelmed with the complexity and the detail that seems to go with self-publishing, especially around actually getting it right, marketing, helping the book be successful, etc. Are there book shepherds available to self-publishing authors who are professional, reliable, ethical, and do they have time to devote to an aspiring author? And my answer there would be, yeah, there are actually tons of book shepherds and book midwives and coaches and consultants and everything. But as ever, we can't say who's good and who's not good. And I would say that I used to do consulting and don't now, because I focus on my own publishing. I have courses, I have books, the Alliance has books. There are lots of people who've codified their knowledge into books and courses, but most of us don't want to, don't have the time to do that one-on-one anymore, because even for whatever money, I used to charge silly money per hour, but I just couldn't, because I can't spare the time. So I would say that, yes, there are lots, but you have to, like, the people who have the time to do that are not the ones who are actually self-publishing professionally. So again, you have to look at where's the business model. Are they making money from selling books or selling other things? So you just have to decide, I guess.
You have to be very, very careful in this area because there is so much misinformation about self-publishing. There are people who, you know, set up as self-appointed experts who really do not know what they're talking about. So you really do need to look for somebody who's walking the talk. And as Joanna says, you know, it's once you are walking the talk, that probably gets more exciting than telling other people how to do it. So, you know, you might get them in the window between those two activities, maybe. But there is a deeper kind of question there. It absolutely is overwhelming at the beginning. There's no doubt about it. If you're very kind of techie and you love tech and you jump in there and it's all very exciting to you, and you know you have that kind of detective thing around tech and you want to find how this works and that works, and you're fine. But most of us are not like that. I most certainly am not like that. And at the beginning, there's an awful lot to learn. If you hold fast and just do the learning slowly, use your fellow authors as a sort of a wisdom hive, they will help you. And we all help each other enormously because we all felt the way you feel now. And learn how to do it yourself. It's a much, much better way than beginning by giving it over to somebody else to do it for you, because sooner or later, you know, it's likely that you're going to want to do it yourself. So I would say slow down. Writing, you don't have to get the book out quickly. This is a thing. Authors are very impatient. So, you know, we rush our first draft and then we rush our final draft and then we rush it into, just generally speaking, most of us need to slow right down. I'm talking to myself here also. Just to take the pressure off. Take your time, learn what you need to know. Concentrate first on making a good book, and that means design and editorial. Until you've made at least 2 books, don't think too much about marketing and promotion beyond the broadest sense of who is my reader, what is my genre, how do I reach them, you know, and begin kind of tentatively a little bit of experimentation around that. But, you know, don't spend a lot of time marketing when you only have 1 book. So make a good book, make a second good book, and then on your third, as you're doing your kind of first draft, begin to think about the marketing and promotion. Once you've done it twice, all this stuff becomes very easy. It's actually not complicated at all. Most of us now who, you know, publishing a book, getting it up on the various platforms is a morning's work, that's all. So it does get easier. So I would say just kind of hold on, take your time, learn how to do it step by step, and in a year's time, you won't know yourself.
Sorry, I have a bit of a cough. If I go mute, you just carry on.
Well, I was finished. I have nothing else to say.
Good. Jerry asks, I've asked to no avail my publisher to take the book off Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Any recourse, question mark?
Oh, I'm afraid not. If they won't do it, Amazon won't do it for you. And if you can't persuade your publisher to do it, there's not a lot can be done, really. I mean, we've had a number of people who wanted that, and it's just lots of publishers do it. They're happy to do it, but lots of publishers say no. It's part of their catalog, and it's there, and it's passed, and it's over, and you have the rights, but they leave it sitting up there. My Penguin books are up there, and I really wish they weren't, because I've rejigged them completely, and they're no longer the same thing, but they kind of sit there. And sometimes people tell me with great glee that they've bought my book, and it's an old copy that's kind of still circulating around from those days. So I'm sorry, no.
You sell your rights, you sell your rights. That's the way it goes.
Even if you get them back.
Shelley says, I'm about to embark on the self-publishing route and have just applied for my ISBNs.
Good for you, Shelley.
And I'd say, why are you doing that at this point in the journey? Anyway, looking for an editor, one who will work with me and not just charge for a one-off appraisal. As per last answer on editors, go to the Alliance website and use the partner member search. Or remember, you can always look at other indie books in your genre, and at the back they will usually recommend their editor and their cover designer, because Shelley also asked about recommendations of cover designers with experience in children's books. and where to go to get books printed as I envisaged school visits. So I always also recommend Karen Inglis, Alliance member Karen Inglis, Inglis, who has a wonderful website where she puts all the information about how she has done her own children's books of all different ages and, you know, from fully illustrated print books all the way to apps and things. So Karen is my #1 children's book recommended author.
She's fantastic. She is actually the children's advisor with ALLi, and she is so generous with her time. You know, she will advise you if she can, and she's the queen of school visits. You know, and she has sold phenomenal numbers of books compared to trade published children's authors. Publishing is hard. Children's publishing is really hard. So, but very, very rewarding. So yes, definitely do check her out. The other thing, just to touch back into the earlier part of your question about that relationship thing with the editor and the designer indeed, but particularly the editor, that can take a little bit of time to find the right person. So, you know, everybody on the ALLi directory is vetted by us, which means they all do a professional job. They have a qualification in editing. They are just editors. They're not just, you know, authors who decided they were going to be editors on the side to make some money. They are people who know what they're doing. However, that does not mean that they are the right person for you. So, you know, that relationship, I always think choosing an editor is like choosing a spouse. You know, you need to put that amount of care, time, thought and effort into it, and you probably have to date a few zingers before you actually meet the right person. So again, take your time on that, and don't, because of your wish to have that relationship, find yourself overly dependent on somebody who isn't actually the right person.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think you tend to, like, as your writing changes, you might change editors as well. Like as my writing got better, I moved to a better, in quotation marks, fit for me as an editor, and I probably pay more now than I did, you know, because we end up really, really valuing editorial, like I always did, but I think I value it more every time, even though the edits might even be less, because my writing's better, but the comments are so insightful that it makes a big difference.
It's a hugely important relationship. They are the great unsung heroes of publishing. You know, really, so many books that you're reading are down to the editorial that's gone into them, and a good editor is just worth their weight in the proverbial gold, definitely. So good luck in your search.
Yeah. Okay. Sandeep asks, I have some poems written in Hindi. Can I get them published? Awesome. So I did see this before, and that's why I come back to the mykitab.in podcast with Amar Vyas. We also have Rasana Atreya, who is in India, and both and Rasana has information on her website about self-publishing in India, and I can't remember the site, but Amar did this brilliant, there's this brilliant thing, it's like an app where you read Hindi and, you know, read books, like it's like a well, I can't explain it, but it's amazing. And he did it live as we did the podcast. He read my book out in Hindi, and wow. And you know, and you can share it like almost like a YouTube thing, or, you know. And so I would say, Sandeep, to some poems written in Hindi sounds, this type of platform where you have things you know, said out loud is really great for poetry. And also there are, what I've seen about the Indian publishing, self-publishing scene is that books in local languages are doing really well. So publishing in Hindi is better than having a book in English, obviously. So, you know, definitely check out mykitab.in and Rasana Atreya's website. And I'm going to have Rasana on my show.
Okay, and Rasana is going to be on our next ALLi Insight. Rasana and Ritesh, because of course India is going off. Everybody wants to talk about India, so we'll be doing self-publishing in India.
There we go. Yeah. Fantastic. And you know, obviously one big thing that everyone can do is go into their platforms. You can, on Amazon, on iBooks, and I think on Kobo, or soon to be on Kobo, you can put your price in rupees, and that's super important because your rupee price will not be appropriate right now. So yeah, ebooks should be between 60 and 90 rupees, which yours will probably be at 500 rupees. That's why no one's buying them.
Basically put them at the minimum level, or not too far above it.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Lucy says, some people are getting notices on Amazon saying their book will be out of stock for 3 to 5 weeks, despite the fact they are POD. Annoying. Yeah, my books are through Lightning Source.
This is what I was talking about earlier. Yeah, that's why.
Yeah. Yeah. Covered under Ingram Spark, which is what Lightning Source used to be.
What you should do, Lucy, now is go back into Lightning Source, and I'm not sure actually if you can. I'm not as familiar with the Lightning Source platform, because really Ingram is very much now about moving indie authors onto Spark, but certainly in Spark, and so I assume in Lightning Source you can opt out of Amazon. So go back in and do that, and then get your book up on CreateSpace as well, and then it'll be available to be purchased immediately.
Fantastic. Lauren says, I love posting the ALLi member seal on my website. However, I would like the code to be easily found under member resources.
It's under your profile. So if you go into the member zone and you just go to your own profile, you'll find all of the badges there in the affiliate code area as well. All the affiliate codes and everything that you need should be there. But if you can't find it or anything, just drop us an email and we'll send it straight back out to you.
Wendy says, last question, what would be your #1 marketing tip for a new author? That's for you, Orna.
Oh, well, the #1, this is so vague, but it's so important, and it takes a long while to kind of get. My #1 marketing tip is to know your genre and your reader. You know, place yourself, place your book. If you're a brand new author, you've got one book. What's your plan for the second book? You know, make some decisions. Okay, you'll have creative imperatives and impulses that arise, but make some decisions around, let marketing guide what you're doing creatively a bit. You know, obviously not in any sort of crass way, but in a way that feels good and feels right. So first of all, #1 thing is know who your reader is. Think about how you make that reach out. So you want to set up an email opt-in on your website. I think that's the first thing. You have to have a kind of a funnel in, and you hold on to them. To have something on your web way that active of the books that you have need a relationship. That's where I would start.
Now, if those of you watching are getting the I was going to say, if those people watching have had the experience I've just had with your web cutting out, Orna, nobody got any tips.
Oh, really? Oh,
no, okay. But it was fun. So luckily that was the last question.
Okay. Well, do you want to add your marketing tip in the hope that it did go out okay? Because it seemed fine this end.
Hopefully it went out okay. From my end, what I heard was know your reader and your market, and I would add to that probably the #1 marketing asset you will end up using over and over again is your book cover, and that has to resonate with your genre and your target market anyway. So if you spend the time on your book cover and looking at book covers in your genre and getting one designed by a professional so that it fits into that genre, that's going to take you a long way. And you're going to use that cover on your website, you're going to use it in social media, you're going to use it, everywhere, so as well as on your book. So it probably is the #1 piece of marketing assets, or whatever you want to call it, that you will spend money on. And I think generally we all agree that we, as indies, we spend money on editing and cover design. And those two things are kind of non-negotiable if you want to have a professional product. And people forget that a book cover is marketing, but it really is.
And I've actually heard somebody say the best marketing is editorial, and I kind of get that too, But
people don't get to editorial unless they get past the cover.
Yeah, oh no, I agree with you. Oh no, the cover is the absolute number one. And then when you actually get on to what I had just said, for those who may not have heard, it was the next point of departure then, I think, is to try and establish some kind of an email list and some kind of a closer connection with your reader than just, you know, they buy your book and then they wander off and buy somebody else's.
Yeah, I think this is the big thing, and again, the view from the further down the line, as I've just had with my one standalone book, is it's so much easier to sell a series, and this is overarching opinion from everywhere now, BookBub and Smashwords and everywhere. Authors who write series make more money, have more readers, you know, sell more books, are probably happier because it's much easier to write. It's more relaxing to write in a series. You know, obviously everyone wants to challenge themselves, but it was actually very nice for me to go from writing something completely new to coming back to my series, and I just have to come up with a new plot. I've got the characters, got the world, just do another plot.
Yeah, I mean, if you can bring your writing around that way, do. Some people can't, you know. There are people who can only write standalone books, and you know, and some genre lend themselves more to series than others. So but definitely it's gone past opinion, isn't it? It's wisdom now.
It's kind of proven by numbers.
It is, really. Yeah, it is. There was a time where that was nearly heresy, and that time is only about 2 years ago, when people used to say, what, really? Series? No, why would people want to, you know? But
I wonder if that is also the rise of Netflix and the rise of, you know, on-demand TV, where people are now, like Netflix will release the whole of House of Cards at once. They're not going to do it drip, drip, drip. They just release the whole thing, and people want this big experience, you know, of all these hours of experience, and you can only get that from a series. Like you can't do it in one book, even if it's as thick as George R.R. Martin. The people who want to kind of dive into a world, you have to do it over multiple books. So I wonder if it, like the Netflix thing, is altering the way people want to consume entertainment.
Or is it that we've realized that this is what people want now, that they can have it, in a sense, in that, you know, traditional ways of putting out material made lots of assumptions, because you know, as a business, there was very little feedback, and that's the biggest thing that digital has done, is actually allowed us to see how people do read, as opposed to how we think they read. Because I remember having this serious discussion when it was becoming obvious that indies were doing very well in series, and you know, I remember talking to people about that, and people saying, no, absolutely not. Nobody wants to make that sort of commitment. And, you know, no publisher would ever purchase lots of books it would just be seen as way too risky, unless they were already proven entities that had sold somewhere else. So, yeah, I'm not sure whether it's something we're seeing more of, or whether it's just, it was always there, but just not provided for.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Okay, our next one of these is on Tuesday, the 23rd of February, because of course February being a short month. Or is it a leap year this year? Oh, it is. How exciting. It is a leap year.
Don't get too excited, you're married already.
I just like the extra day, you know, get an extra day to get things done.
More work for Jo.
I love work. Yes, so Tuesday the 23rd of February, we will be back. You can enter your questions on the form, which will be tweeted and shared in the Facebook group and blah, blah, blah. So you can ask us questions. I will be finishing. In fact, the day we do this next time, my draft of Destroyer of Worlds will go to my editor. So that is my deadline. What about you, Orna? What's the next month full of?
I am putting the paperback POD of the first part of the 8th trilogy to bed. And then I will be finished by the time we meet next month. I'll have the first of the Go Creative series out. Or sorry, en route to the formatter.
Yeah. En route. And this is important, everyone. These setting deadlines is actually important, because as indies, who else is going to set us a deadline unless we do it ourselves? So that's how we keep moving. Okay, well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.